What's up, everybody? My name is Shawn Pryor. I am an author and writer of comic books, graphic novels, prose, and children's books. And on the other side, or that side, is the homie.
My name is Bryce Oquaye, and I am an illustrator, very specifically a comic illustrator and concept artist for all kinds of cool teams.
Yes. And together today, what we want to talk about with y'all is how we make comic books, graphic novels, and the creative process behind all of that. Myself, I've been writing and making comic books and all of the types of things for over 13 years. So I have a lot of professional experience. I have a lot of independent experience. Bryce also has, over a decade plus of experience in the arts as well, not only with doing comic books and whatnot, but also teaching kids art in schools. As a matter of fact, can you talk about that for a second?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been working as an illustrator for the closer to about a decade now, and even before I started to go the comics route, just general illustration was always something that was, in my bag. So when it came to kids and some of the ways that the art programs were being handled in schools, all those things being kind of shut down kind of opened up doors for cats like me, who had been working for a while, and kids still interested in the arts had the ability to have, a person like me through amazing places like the Carnegie Center to, have come in and do those instructional things. And over the years, it eventually has evolved into teaching kids things like sequential art, as I began to work in more sequential art gigs. So yeah, it's been amazing.
Awesome. No, that is fantastic, because I think the arts are definitely necessary for the kids. They're necessary, kids, the young adults, teenagers, adults, everyone. The arts are for everyone. And the thing is that comic books are a form of literature. They're a gateway into reading, comics and graphic novels. They're really one and the same. Just some people say comics when they're talking about single issues. Graphic novels, they're talking about a whole, full, complete story that's over X amount of pages, but they're a gateway to literature. And so, we see like this major influx of graphic novels now being, either taught at schools or used in reading curriculums and things like that. And that's great. But the whole thing is that, well, how do you make one? How do you make a comic book? How do you make a graphic novel? And that's what we're going to talk about to y'all today. So for an example, what we're going to talk about today is that for fun, a year ago, myself and Bryce, along with colorist Melissa Caprileone, we made a Flintstones comic for fun. We're big fans of the Flintstones. That's an old school cartoon. I know a lot of y'all's generation, whoever's watching this video right now, like, the Flintstones, how old are they? How old are they? but like, I always had this idea for a story that was part of it came from an old Flintstones commercial. And I was like, well, I want to talk about the story of why does Barney always want to steal Fred's Fruity Pebbles? Why? I was like, it could be a short comic. It doesn't have to be long. I was like, but let's just do this for fun. And so Bryce was like, oh, I'm on board for this. Let's go. Let's go. He was on Twitter. He was like, no, show me the script. I was like, all right, cool. But that's the whole thing. That's the first part. The first part is you have to have a script. You have to have a story. Without the story, there's no comic. Okay. You have to have something to give to the artist to say, okay, this is what we're trying to do. This is what we're trying to say. This is what we're trying to show. So the first thing I do is I say, okay, well, how many pages do I want this comic to be? And I said, okay, it's like, oh, short story. Let's make it 8 pages. Okay. So that means it's going to be 8 pages of artwork. All right, cool. Well, now the thing is, it's like, okay, how do I get from the beginning to the end? First thing I do, I make an outline. And I outline all the things that I want to see in the story. And then I'm like, okay, well, I've got 8 pages to do this. Let's look at everything on this outline here and say, okay, can I get all this to work in 8 pages? you know, and if I can, great. Now, if not, I'll remove things that aren't necessary to the story to make it fit.
When you make your outline, how does that look? How does that look? How do you divide that up?
How do I divide that? Okay, well, normally what I'll do is this. Like, I won't, like, what I'll do is I'll just pull out a piece of paper, or I'll pull out, like, you know, a notes app or something like that, and I'll just do bullet points. And I'll just say, you know, like, say, for instance, I'm like, okay, you know, Fred, like, see, Fred's about to eat a bowl of cereal, and he's, you know, he's over by the fireplace. He's about to eat a bowl of cereal. He's happy. And then say Barney is looking outside of the Flintstones window and sees Fred with the cereal, and then I'll say, okay, Barney's preparing to, you know, run across the top of the roof of the house in a Santa Claus outfit, and like I'm just going step by step, every single thing that Fred and Barney are going to do, you know, in this mini comic. I go step by step by step by step. So what ends up happening is that, like, I might have a page to 2 pages full of an outline that's just saying everything in bullet points, saying everything that they're going to do. And like, if I have like any keynotes or like special lines that I want these characters to say, so I don't forget, I'll write those down automatically. And I was like, nice. So then that way I've got it later when I actually write out the script. So I've got the outline. I may have cut some things out because not sure if I can't squeeze all that into 8 pages. So then I start to write the script. In writing the script, then what I do is, and here's the thing, when you write a comic script, it's different than writing a movie script. It's different than writing a report for school. It's all different. But like what I normally do when you write a comic book script, you have to make it as visual as you can for your artist, so your artist knows what's going on, so then they can interpret that and then put their spin on it. Because if you don't tell them what's going on, how can they draw the page? You know, like, you know, I just can't say like, okay, page 1, panel 1, yeah, just Fred, bowl of cereal. Now, if I say that, if I just say Fred and bowl of cereal, you know, like, you're gonna be like, well, where is this at? You know, like, what's the backdrop like? What's the environment like? So I have to give details. So I could be like, okay, panel 1, Fred Flintstone, you know, in the kitchen with a bowl of Fruity Pebbles, and Barney is looking from the window outside. So now that gives Bryce the opportunity to say, okay, he's giving me all this information. I can do something with this. And just because I put what I said in that script, it doesn't mean that Bryce has to go beat by beat. Because sometimes just because I write something a certain way, or a writer writes something a certain way, an artist can interpret it differently, and can also make the story better than I wrote it.
It's like a skeleton. Yes. It's like a skeleton. You get all of the really important parts that you need to be able to function. But by the time the script gets to me and I have those bones to work with, then it's almost like the artwork is the muscle. Yes. It's going to add that extra function to it. I'm going to take my imagination and merge it with your imagination, and it's easier because you've given me so many visual cues in what you've written.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And so I, you know, do the script. So say like page 1, panel 1, because with comic books, when you look at a comic book page, you know, all those squares or different shapes that you see with all the characters in them are panels. So, you know, I'll say page 1, panel 1, and here's the action. You know, and if the character has dialogue, I'll say, you know, put the character's name followed by, and then the dialogue that's after it. Panel 2, same thing, writing down what action or inaction is taking place. If the characters have lines, I'll put those lines in there. And you do that for every single page until your story is done. You have your beginning, your middle, your end. And then so once that script is done, you know, I check it for edits, you know, make sure there aren't any typos, make sure that like the actions that I've written make sense for Bryce. Because I don't want to give him something and he'd be like, well, I don't know what that means. Yes, he can ask me. He can ask me anything. It's fine, you know, because this is a collaborative effort. But like, if I don't make it clear in what I'm trying to say, it makes it harder for him. It makes it harder for Bryce to put his art to the page, you know?
Absolutely.
And so once the script is finished, the edits are done, I hand the script over to Bryce. And then the story takes a whole new light, because now we're hitting into the next phase of the production of the comic. And so I'm gonna let you talk on that.
Yeah, this is it's around this part of the process where I'll probably be at the tail end of putting together the designs and the things that I know are coming, because me and Shawn will have had, you know, multiple conversations and things like that. Like with this comic in particular, we talked many times via text, on the phone, and we knew what we were going to be working on, and we knew exactly what was being referenced as far as like the old commercials and things like that. So that familiarity was there. And then I have a particular type of style of drawing, so I needed to make sure that everything translated over in my style in the way that Shawn was going to be okay with. And it's important that we can agree on the visuals as well, because I like things a certain type of way, but if Shawn has certain types of intentions, we have to make sure that we are on the exact same page. Sometimes the artwork can wind up being way more action or way more cartoony or something like that, depending on what a person's thinking. And you know, well, once we got that squared away, then when I got the script, we had already had those things plotted out, and then everything was going from page to page and laying things out. I make things that I don't know, some of you kids have probably heard about this, some of you older ones, thumbnails, where you do small sketches that are going to make it easier for you to do your bigger illustration. So, and that's one of the most important pieces of doing any kind of comic work at all, is the thumbnail. So every bit of what Shawn gave me is what I thumbnailed out. I made sure that all the beats were correct. I made sure that the panels were as close to what he was wanting, and everything could fit properly and still be, still work visually, because you still, when you're working on a comic page, you have to make sure that everything moves properly from panel to panel.
Yes.
And if you can't direct a person's eye through the comic page, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
So you have to plan that out, and the thumbnail is really, really important. And experienced writers like Shawn know exactly how to pace things to make that easier. So you follow what's being done, and make sure that if you are going to embellish a little bit on what's written, that you can still fit it in to the parameters of whatever the flow of that page is. And this was a short comic, so I think, what was it, like 6 pages?
Yeah, 8. It was 8 altogether. 8 pages.
Was it 8? Okay. Oh yeah, more. Yeah. See, so yeah, with that being a shorter comic, it was super important that everything could flow properly and in an interesting way, because we didn't have many pages to really keep you interested. No. We needed to hit you properly the first time.
Yes.
So I sketched all those out. After I'd laid out these thumbnails, I took those thumbnails when Shawn gave me the okay, and I was 100% on what I did. Then I used comic pages, Bristol boards, about 11 by 17. You draw big, because comic books are smaller, and you want to make sure that all your details and everything look good. So I draw on a large page, and I basically redraw everything that I did on those thumbnails in a clean way that will allow me to make sure that I know exactly what's what, because the process after I lay out all those pencils is to put ink on top of it.
Yes.
And that can be the most time consuming part, now, is to go through that.
Explain them real quick, like, because you talk about pencils, the purpose of putting ink over the pencil.
Yes. So whenever you're penciling out the comic book page, regardless of how neat you may find yourself drawing, in the process of making comics, you're going to have a few things that you're going to have to think about as far as the actual weight of your lines and whether or not the illustration is going to pop correctly in the way that you intend, your foreground, your background, and things like that. Yeah. And that's a major part of the inking process, putting emphasis on certain things. And then all of that stuff has to be scanned and cleaned up. Yes. And your pencil lines can't be scanned in the same way that your inked lines can. Mm-hmm. So it's easier for the person that's going to color after you to be able to, deal with your line art when it's actual solid black lines that can be cleaned up in whatever software that's being used. Yeah. It's easier to kind of separate what's what as far as what's in your composition when you have these bold black lines that's there to be worked with. And it generally just looks good. By the way, it looks really good. It's very rare that you're going to see a comic artist that's going to pencil something and then just leave it at the pencil stage.
Yeah, I see, because I have the original pages. I have the original pages that Bryce did, because he gave it to me as a gift, and I was like, whoa. So yeah, like, this is 11 by 17 paper. And he broke it all down by panels, just like in the script. And so
whenever you have your, just using that page is actually a perfect example. Mm-hmm. Whenever you have your comic panels that you're laying out based off of the script that you're given, you can take those thumbnails, and when you redraw them over to a page that large, it's so much easier for you to put that level of detail into something that's big, rather than taking an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, which some people do use.
Oh yeah.
But you just don't get the same amount of details, and it's harder to clean up afterwards. So when you draw real big, you can clearly put your panels exactly where they need to be.
Yes.
It's kind of a standard when you're printing as well, mm-hmm. to go from an 11 by 17 page down to, I forget what the exact comic book dimensions are. But yeah, it's something, it's at this point, it's almost like tradition.
Yes.
For comic artists.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, the inking phase is probably, I think, one of the most important parts of the whole process, because it just makes everything easier for the person coloring, and that's where your drawing pops.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And so after Bryce has finished the pencils and inks and has, given me clean scans of all the pages, then from there, I look at those pages and I'm like, wow, this is incredible. First, I'm just like looking at all the pages and I get excited. I'm texting Bryce for like the next 3 days, like, man, these pages are fantastic. This is so dope. And then after that, I reached out to a colorist. So Melissa Caprignone, I say, okay, these are the pages. This is the story that we're trying to tell. And because it's the Flintstones, a cartoon that's been around forever, I told her that I would like to use the same color palette that the cartoon uses. So, the colors that Fred Flintstone normally wears and Barney normally wears, use those colors. And I was like, and it takes place during Christmas. So, make sure that you also use like Christmas hues as well. And she got it. And so she literally has to go through every page and then, put down flats. And what flats are flat colors. And flat colors on every single page. And then the colorist then goes in and turns those flats into fully blown colors. And what I mean by that is the colors are no longer flat. They have shape. They are it's more of a blend.
Shading on them.
Yeah, shading. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for.
And the lighting on there.
Yep, shading and lighting in the whole nine. And then once that is all complete, then it goes to a letterer to be lettered. And I want to say it was either Melissa or Justin Birch who did the lettering. And now they have to look at the script. And so this is where, once again, where I come into play. They take the dialogue and then make word balloons and pop those word balloons and dialogue in those word balloons. So if I misspell any of the dialogue, that's going to show up on the comic, and that looks bad. So I have to, once again, double check all my dialogue to make sure that it's legit. And so, because like it's not the letterer's responsibility to do that. The letterer's responsibility is to just put the word balloons where they're supposed to go and put the text where it's supposed to go. That's it. Their job is not to edit words. Their job is to just put words on the page. So once that's done, I get the final page, and it's been like the script's been written. We've had thumbnails. We then had penciled and ink pages, and then we had colored pages, and then lettered pages. It's done. It's a wrap. It's a wrap. Our comic is finished, and so that in a very brief period of time is like a very quick process of how a comic book is made, or how we made a comic. There is no one way to make a comic. There is no one way, okay? And there's all different types of comics, whether you're talking about single issue comics, graphic novels, web comics, there's also like those animated comics, because a lot of people are using GIFs to make comics. There's more than one way to make a comic. So we just explained one of the ways. We just explained one of those because we're old school. We're old school. So, but I hope that what we talked about with y'all today resonated with you, and we hope that you enjoyed it. That you enjoyed it, and we hope that it sparks your imagination and creativity.
Absolutely. And at the end of it all, regardless of what you're wanting to work on, or what part of the comic process that you want to take part in, you have to make sure that you enjoy what you're doing. That's, I think, the most important part, because regardless of any ups and downs that we may have throughout our careers, at the end of the day, we are fans, and we love what we do because we love the culture of it.
Yeah.
So it's easy to collaborate with people when you share something like this that you love with each other. So we could talk, and we could enjoy ourselves and laugh and joke, and then we could create something like this, and it doesn't feel like the amount of work that actually goes into it.
Oh yeah, because it's a lot of work.
Yes,
it's a lot of work.
A lot of work.
It's a lot of work. But let's go ahead and wrap this call. Let's go ahead and wrap up this call. So because you can't have the kids up for too long. But no. Once again, I'm Shawn Pryor, and over there is the homie
Bryce Oquaye.
All right, and we will see y'all next time. Peace.